All right, good evening. I'm going to start with today's class. This is the second one. We only have one lesson left to finish the first unit, right? Today we have to finish the first unit. And as always, after this lesson, as we have extra time because we're not practicing, I'm going to show you an extra lesson related to writing as well. We finished by covering the elements of essay right in the last course. So now we're going to take a look at some tips, all right, writing tips to improve our essay in general, to make it more formal. At least that's related to the argumentative or persuasive essay we're learning, okay? It is not going to apply to all types of essay, but for that one, all right, for which you were practicing the introduction, the body paragraph, and the conclusion, and also to which you can apply all the rules for punctuation, right, including all the transitional words and phrases that you can use. Okay, if you combine all those elements plus the one I'm going to show you today and perhaps a little bit next class, you can have a very good essay and you can improve your writing skills. Okay, but before going there, let's first cover this last lesson for Unit 1, that is comparison with SS. Okay, let's take a look at it. I'm going to verify if the microphone is working correctly. Again, I have some echo sometimes, I don't know why, but let me check. Okay, it seems that it's okay, so let's begin. The definition. Use a structure as to show equality or inequality between two people, objects, places, animals, or ideas. It's possible to use the comparison with adjectives, adverbs, and nouns. Okay, so this double S is to compare anything you want, all right, in terms of the description that they got with adjectives, in terms of how they do certain actions, that's adverbs, or in terms of the quantity or quality of something, it means nouns. All right, let's take a look at that. These are the main formulas for the three elements that I just mentioned: adjectives, adverbs, and nouns. For adjectives, of course, you need the first item plus the verb plus s plus an adjective and s. So s, right, has in between the adjective or the adverb or the noun. In this case, an adjective, of course, plus the second item. So it is not or it's not, right? You can contract that in any way you want. It's not as big as the old one. It's as good as you can get for the price. Easy, right? If it's an adjective, of course you need what? You need a noun, a pronoun to describe, and that's easy. You don't need anything else. The noun or pronoun plus the verb to be, plus in this case, the adjective, right in between SS. Then adverbs, here you need action verbs. So you don't use the verb to be, you have to use an action verb. All right, that's very important, an action verb. So adverbs, right? First item plus verb plus s, adverb s, plus second item. So it doesn't work, right? We have another verb that is not the verb to be, as well as we'd hoped. Okay, so doesn't work is the action verb in negative, as well as is the adverb in between that structure, and we'd hope is the last part. We're comparing reality with our past expectations. Okay, so you can compare absolutely anything: people, objects, right, or expectations, reality, present versus past, and so on. We finished as quickly as we could. Also, finish is an action verb. We know how finished, or how quickly in this case, sorry, right, we finished. And we could is comparing this with our abilities in the past. So again, absolutely everything can be compared with this structure. Nouns, first item plus verb plus s plus quantity expression plus s plus second item. He doesn't earn as much money as his brother. Okay, doesn't earn, that's a verb that can contain a quantity. In this case, we have much money. We use much because money is uncountable, right? There aren't as many people as there were last year. So again, you're comparing present and past or places, but in this case, we are using as many as because we have people and people is countable. So we use many for countable. All right, we know those rules. We covered that before, so we are not going to explain that again. But remember that some nouns are countable, some other nouns are uncountable, and with the countable ones we use many, with the uncountable ones we use much. All right, if that's clear, everything is clear in that sense. Now, equality. It's what we were doing, but we are putting emphasis that if it's affirmative, it shows equality. So we can use the as a structure in a positive form to show that things are the same. With adjectives, my cooking is as good as yours, right? The quality of my cooking is the same as yours. Adverbs, I can sing as well as you can. My ability to sing is the same as yours, right? Equality. Quantity, there are as many people here who can speak Chinese as English. You're comparing two groups, right? The people who speak Chinese to the people who speak English. In this case, it's the same. It's positive, so it shows equality. So easy, right? If you want to say that something is equal, you have to use this structure as in affirmative sentences, and that's it. Now, make right or to put some degree of how equal or not equal, right, something is or can be, you can use nearly. When we use nearly to modify positive as sentences, their meanings, right, are different. So they are not the same. But if it's affirmative, the difference is small. If it's negative, the difference is big. So small differences, nearly. With a positive s as a structure, nearly shows a small difference, right? David is nearly as tall as Michael. It's a small difference. Michael is only a little taller than David. That's the meaning, right? The difference is not big. They're almost as tall, right? Nearly, but they are not the same. Compare this with negative sentence, right? This negative sentences, or this negative sentence, sorry, is David isn't nearly as tall as Michael. And when the difference is very big, we use negative sentences with nearly. In this case, it means that Michael is much taller than David, or David is much shorter than Michael. All right, of course, you can change the adjective and the order of the people or the things you're comparing, but the idea is the same. Okay, so let's remember, nearly is to show that it's not equal, but it can be, all right, close to be equal, or it can be very, very different. Now, quite and just, they don't have a specific meaning. They are just used to add emphasis. Okay, so if we want to emphasize that two things are the same, for example, because the person we are speaking to may not accept what we are saying, we can use quite or just. You're a terrible tennis player. I'm just as good as you. All right, so I'm as good as you, but as you're saying that I'm terrible, I'm saying that I'm just as good as you. I'm not saying that I'm better. I'm saying that I'm worse. I'm saying that we are the same, but I'm putting emphasis on that idea. This phone is quite as good as that one, even if it does cost less. All right, again, the idea is over there, it is the same, but what happens is that we are putting emphasis, all right, on that equality. So that was equality. We can use just affirmative sentences. We can use nearly to show that it's close to be similar, or we can use just and quite to show that again. Now, equality easy. It's just with negative sentences. We can show that two things, right, are not equal using not as adjective as. So when we use this structure, the first thing mentioned is less than the second thing. The order of the things you are comparing is opposite to that used in comparisons with comparative adjectives. This one, yes, this one isn't as big as the old one. The old one is bigger than this one, so inequality. Jenny's new flat isn't as nice as her old one. Jenny's old flat is nicer than her new one. Inequality. Paris isn't as big as Tokyo. Tokyo is bigger than Paris. Okay? Inequality. So if we use negative sentences with the structure as, it means that it's not the same. Now we can use, of course, that with adverbs, as we know, right? We can use the structure, right, as to compare actions. Again, the order of the things compared is the opposite to that in a comparison with comparative adverbs. So it doesn't work as well as we'd hoped. It means we'd hoped it would work better than it does, but it's not the case. Michael didn't play as well this week as he did last week. Michael played better last week than he did this week, right? So again, we are saying that two things, two places, two periods of time, to anything, right, were not equal or are not equal or will not be equal, all right? Or in this case, the action related to those things is different because we're talking about adverbs. Now, of course, we can talk about nouns. The as structure is often used with quantity expressions such as much or as many. It depends, right, if it's countable or uncountable. So this phone doesn't have as many features as the other one. Okay, this phone doesn't have as many features as the other one. The other phone has more features than this one. So in this case, you are saying exactly the same. And the first one with the as structure, and the second one with the more or er structure. That is the one that we learned before. My ticket didn't cost as much as yours. Your ticket costs, right, more than mine. Now, in the two cases, we're talking about inequality. In the two cases, we are using nouns, but in the first one, we're using a countable noun, right? Many features, one feature, and more features. Then much, all right, because you're talking about how much it costs. And in that case, it's not countable. So we use much, all right? Now, emphasis with nearly, nowhere, and quite in negative ideas or big differences, it's related to this, right? So when we want to show that there is a big or small difference between the things, right, being compared, we can use the adverb, sorry, nearly, nowhere near, and quite. So emphasizing a big difference. England isn't nearly as big as Russia. It means that Russia is way bigger. Or it's the same if you say England is nowhere near as big as Russia. Both show big difference. Both are negative. And again, what they say, in other words, is Russia is much bigger than England. Okay, so isn't nearly as big as or nowhere near as big as. Emphasizing a small difference. My flat isn't quite as big as Jenny's. All right, Jenny's flat is a bit, slightly bigger than mine. The journey didn't take quite as long as it did last time. It means the journey took a bit, or slightly longer than last time. All right, so that's the idea. That's how we use comparatives with as in affirmative ideas and in negative ideas to show equality or inequality. Okay, so again, if that's clear, everything should be clear in general. Now, why did I stop sharing? I wanted to stop this only. Okay, that was the first lesson. Now I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to get ready and we will start the second lesson, all right, in a couple of minutes. It's going to be the actual lesson because with that we finished Unit 1. Now we're going to take a look at some tips to improve our writing skills that we can apply to all the knowledge that we've been learning right these weeks with the extra lessons for writing. Okay, so we'll start in a couple of minutes. Okay, so let's begin with this new lesson. The last one, this is extra because we finished Unit 1 already. This is the second day again, and on Wednesday being the third one, we will start the second unit. All right, so tips to improve writing skills. Again, this is to work with everything we've been learning related to writing. Now, let's follow the steps. Step number 1, use the active voice. Now, look, passive voice is formal, and in many situations, it's a great idea to use it. But when it's a persuasive, argumentative essay, it is a good idea to use active voice. All right, so this is the first step, the first recommendation or tip to improve our writing skills. It says, the active voice is used when the subject of your sentence performs the action to a direct object. In other words, noun performing an action plus the action, right, that is the verb, and the object receiving the action. The passive voice is used when the subject is the thing receiving the action and the thing doing the action appears as an indirect object near the end of the sentence. The formula for passive voice is noun receiving the action plus action verb and an optional indirect object. Okay, so again, they are just explaining what active voice is. But why? It is important to use active voice in persuasive or argumentative essays because we have to show evidence. We have to say who says what. For example, if you remember our body paragraphs, we have to show evidence. So it's important to say who said that evidence. So we say the professor, right, expert in Cambridge University or at Cambridge University said the following about this idea. So it's active voice. And again, it's important because we have to mention who said that. If we only say passive voice and we don't mention who said that, or it's at the end, it's like taking some importance away from it, and it's not going to be as it's not going to have as much impact as it could have when we use the active voice. Okay, so step 1, tip number 1, let's use active voice. Then number 2, use literal and concrete language. This is important. Say flowery, right, or flowery, sorry, an abstract language for works of fiction. When writing a persuasive essay, right, again, we're talking about argumentative or persuasive essay, you want to make sure you use very clear and direct language. You want your writing to be easily understood in a quick read through, all right? Abstract language slows down the reader and makes your writing less succinct. Instead of trying to create a literary, yes, masterpiece, concentrate your attention on concrete examples that support your argument. Now, again, this in other words, you can have personal examples or essays. You can have essays that are related to this more literary, all right, a way of approaching reality. You can write different types of papers and you can use this type of language that is metaphorical. But in argumentative or persuasive essay, you don't have to say things in a metaphorical way. You don't have to say things using vocabulary that complicates, right, the idea instead of making it more understandable. For persuasive essay, you have to be concrete. You have to be literal. You have to say the things the way they are, and that's it. Okay, it has to be clear for the reader. You don't have to make it harder for it to be understood. Okay, so the clearer, the more concrete, the more literal you are, the better. Also, avoid using vague language. You do not want to say something like, I am great at a variety of things. Broad statements like this will leave the reader wondering, what things? What qualifies you as great? Rather, you should use concrete and specific language. Write something closer to, I received the MVP award from my basketball team 3 years in a row, which unquestionably demonstrates your achievement. Okay, so it's the same for your writing, for your essay. If your thesis statement is, that's why it's important to do a lot of things to improve that, it's bad, right? It's not correct, because if you say that, it's not clear what things you're talking about. Instead of that, pick one or two or three, let's say, that stops of things that you can mention. That's why we have to do this and that to improve it. Okay, so you have to say what. If you don't say what, and you're simply going to say many things, a lot of things, and so on, it's not clear, and you have to be clear. Okay, so avoid the usage of vague language and be as concrete, as literal as possible. That's going to, again, make your essay way better, all right, and it's going to be easily understood. Now, number 3, be concise. Now, in this case, again, you can have very long sentences, all right? You can have sentences that are 3, 4, 5 lines long, and it's only one sentence. It is possible. Don't do it, at least for this type of sentence. Why? Because as in the previous step, is going to make that more complex and complicated or unclear. Okay, we have to avoid confusion. We have to avoid misinterpretation. And in order to avoid those things, we have to be clear. All right, and we have to be concise in this case. Wordy sentences are hard to follow. We recommend not including any sentences that are longer than 2 lines in your essays. As rule of thumb, sorry, okay, never say in 10 words what you can say in 5. This rule is applicable to paragraph length as well. Of course, one sentence is not necessarily better than 4, but make sure that every sentence says something significant. Do not use any filler sentences. All right, college admissions, because this is part of a college recommendation. Officers can detect BS instantly. They see it all the time. Now, I already said it. It can be five lines, your sentence, and grammatically speaking, it can be correct. But we have to avoid confusion, because if you have a 5, imagine, 2, it's like the limit, right? If you have 3, imagine writing in 3 lines just for one sentence, and 4 and 5. It is going to make you unsure. It's going to be confusing. The idea is going to escape, all right? And the reader, again, might misinterpret that sentence. And yeah, the main idea of what you're trying to say over there can be lost. So in order to avoid that, we have to, all right, in order to avoid that situation, we have to be concise. That was number 3. Number 4, be careful with placement of descriptive words and phrases, okay? Make sure that you place adjectives and descriptive phrases as close to the noun as they modify as possible. Otherwise, your writing can become difficult to read, or the meaning of the text, or it can be misconstructed. Take a look at these examples. So the first one is grammatically correct, and it has the order that we grammatically expect. I will be applying to the University of Pennsylvania in the fall. However, even though it's correct and it has the perfect structure, sometimes it is better to change the order in order to avoid confusion and misinterpretations. In the fall, I will be applying to the University of Pennsylvania. This is the reason. As you can see in the first example, the descriptive phrase in the fall seems like it belongs to the University of Pennsylvania. University of Pennsylvania is not a seasonal school. In the fall describes when the action will be performed, not when the school is in session. It is much better to place in the fall closer to the verb that it modifies, applying, all right, as shown in the second example, rather than after the prepositional phrase. Okay, so be sure that the main elements, if you have a long sentence, that the main elements are close to the subject and the verb, not far away from them, so that the idea is clear and the main elements, again, are close to our main character, our main action. Okay, that's step number 4. Tip number 4. Step number 5, this is very important. It's easy to avoid this, but it's very important to do it. Don't use adjectives abbreviations or contractions, right? What's an abbreviation? It is going to be something like USA, for example, all right, or even the gym, or TV. Let's consider those abbreviations. In contractions, right? Don't, I'm, his, those are contractions. So abbreviations and contractions don't have to be used. This rule is important in any piece of professional writing. Contractions are only appropriate for conventional language and come off lazy or as lazy in formal writing. Similarly, abbreviations are often unclear. Not everyone knows, right, or knows in this case, what CCC stands for. So, again, in order to avoid confusion, tips for writing are just used in order to make your writing more accessible, easy to be understood, all right? They want to make it, all right, so good and formal that everyone can understand that. And it's not possible to create confusion because you are avoiding all of these elements that can create confusions in English. All right, so again, it's very important. That was step number 5. Abbreviations can create confusion because we don't know what's the meaning of that abbreviation, perhaps, and contractions because it's not formal. Okay, now repetition. This is also very important. We have to take a look at synonyms. We have to learn to use different words or to say it differently in order to avoid saying the same words. You do want to rehash your points and support them in different ways. However, you do not want to repeat the same point over and over again using different language, okay? You do not want, and again and again, we have to use different language, right? If several of your sentences are saying the same thing, it happens. In the essay, if you analyze the body paragraph, you have to repeat the same structure again, and sometimes you have to use the same idea or the same emphasis, but you have to use different words. So it will seem as though, right, you were not capable of coming up with more material to write about. You should also avoid repeating the same words in your writing. Take care not to use the same adjective in every paragraph to describe yourself in your situation. If necessary, feel free to use a thesaurus. In English language, the English language has more words than any other language use them. So that's just what I said. You can say, you can be obliged to use the same structure because of the rules that we have for writing certain types of essays. However, even though we have the same steps, even though we have to say very similar ideas, they have to be stated in different ways, with different words, avoiding repetition, and that's going to help, again, making that reading and document or material more interesting, less tiring, less repetitive, of course, and it's always going to be better. Step number 7, always try to put statements in positive form. Now, this is interesting. It's a good idea to avoid negative sentences, all right? It's kind of weird again, but it is a good idea. Why? Because it sometimes, all right, it can sometimes create confusion. Once again, everything here, all these steps, all these tips are to avoid confusion, to avoid, all right, misinterpretations. It has to be clear. It has to be concrete. It has to be literal. We have to avoid then negative sentences. This will make your language seem stronger as opposed to non-committal, all right, and hesitating. If you use the word not, it must only be in cases of clear denial and antithesis. Take a look at these examples. I do not usually arrive late. I'm usually on time. He did not think that going to the baseball game would be a good use of time. He thought that attending a baseball game would be a waste of time. Right? So in each case, the second sentence is stronger. It means I'm usually on time. He thought that attending a baseball game would be a waste of time. Those, right, are stronger. In the second pair of sentences, the idea did not think, or in the second pair, sorry, of sentences, yes. The idea did not think, we're talking about he did not think that going to the baseball game, that one, is ambiguous, since it implies that he was not thinking about the baseball game at all. So it can create confusion once again. Therefore, do not put in a negative form anything that can be easily, all right, can easily be written in the positive. Negative form ambiguity is one of the reasons that singular words exist to express negative phrases. Instead of not honest, we have dishonest. And instead of did not want much confidence in, you have distrusted. Dig your brain for similar words before committing for a non-committal sentence. Okay, so again, we can say those negative ideas by using negative words and not using a negative form of the sentence. Again, so instead of I don't usually arrive late, we say I'm usually on time, which is the same, but I'm avoiding unnecessary negative ideas because again, it can create confusion and that negative idea can be understood as describing different parts of that sentence. And it's not the case, not every time. Okay, step number 8. No punctuation marks outside the quotation. Now this is easy and we learned this in the first set of rules, right, for punctuation marks. Technically, all punctuation marks have to be written inside the quotes. Commas, semicolons, colons, periods, exclamation, and question marks. The examples. What a wonderful day, quotation marks, and inside, exclamation mark. She said that, all right, period, quotation mark. He said, colon, quotation mark, I'm okay, comma, quotation mark, but we knew he was lying. Okay, so anytime you will need to use a punctuation mark, it has to be inside the quotes, inside the quotation marks. Okay, that's very simple to follow, and that's it. And this is the last one, and with this we finish today. Do not exaggerate. This is, of course, not as important as the other ones, because you're not going to see that result over there. But it's important in the sense that sometimes some people are going to say absolutely anything in order to persuade or to argument with what you have in mind, because the idea is to convince, right, the reader that you're right. However, if you exaggerate, if you say things that are not real and they seem too much, that's going to be negative for your essay, of course. So if you use an obvious exaggeration, your reader will be on guard and begin to mistrust everything you say, including the rest of your self-reported qualifications. You are trying to obtain and secure your reader's trust. Do not blow it by overstating your points. Okay, so again, don't exaggerate. This is main again because you have to write this type of essays for college admissions, university admissions, and this is where I got this material from. However, this applies to any type of persuasive essay. Hopefully, these 9 points will help your, okay, this is the summary, this is the conclusion for everything. So these 9 points will help you achieve a formal style in your college application essays. This is what I was saying, because this is where I got this from. Once you begin attending college, you will be expected to adhere, all right, to this sort of style throughout your academic and professional career. So it is best to learn early. Okay, so some people are for the first time write this type of essays when they are getting admitted in college. However, again, throughout your academic and professional life, you will have to write essays like this. So it's a good idea, and with these types, all right, and tips, because we learned the structure, we learned everything about this essay. You have to take this into account to keep working on that in that way, not only for tests, not only for admissions, but for general writing and papers. This is a good idea. And that's it, okay? I'm going to finish the class over here. We finished the first unit plus the first extra lesson. Okay, with that again, I hope that everything is clear. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you the next one. On Wednesday, we start with the second unit.